All right, so let's continue our story here. We've been going through the Bible by books, big overviews, trying to get big context. What are we talking about? And so we are at the sixth book in the Bible, which is Joshua. Keep in mind, you are now tracing the history of the nation of Israel, which is pregnant essentially with the seed, which is the Messiah. And this nation is now on the border of the Promised Land. And so Joshua is the new leader of the nation. He's taken Moses' place. And so they're right there on the east side of the Jordan. And so this is the book of Joshua in a nutshell. The first couple chapters deal with the preparation for the conquest. It's kind of like the commissioning of Joshua, encouragement to be strong, the spies that are sent in, and they meet Rahab. Rahab protects them and understands that the nation has been given the land by God, and so Rahab proves to be faithful, and this is mentioned in Hebrews later on. Rahab, little note, will eventually become the great-grandmother of King David. But this is the first couple chapters of Joshua. The next big chunk of Joshua deals with the actual conquest of the land, like chapters 3 through 12, and then all of the kind of the various things that go on during the conquest. You've got some crossing of the Jordan, the stones of remembrance and memorials are set up. They go over to Gilgal. There's another circumcision of the people right before, and then the appearance of this commander of the Lord's army in chapter 5. They take Jericho in chapter 6, and Achan, a guy named Achan, decides he wants to keep some stuff out of the city when they've been told don't keep anything, just, don't possess any of this stuff that's in Jericho. It all belongs to the Lord. And Achan decides that he's covetous. He sees these clothes, fashionable clothes. He sees this gold, and so he takes it and hides it. And it's very consequential to he and his family. They're punished by the nation, really by God. And so that's the sin of Achan. Then you have this conquest of a place called Ai. There's a little bit of complication there. There's a renewal of this covenant that started in Genesis, and it's this covenant with Shechem that's renewed. They're these Gibeonites, and they pretend to be outsiders. They're really already in the land, but they don't want to be overtaken, which who does? And so they pretend to be something they're not, and they end up making an agreement with the nation of Israel. And it's kind of called the Gibeonite deception, but anyway, they make an agreement, and this will be consequential in the future. But the Gibeonites make this agreement, and you've got a general kind of description of the southern campaigns of Joshua, the northern campaigns, and then finally in this big chunk, chapter 12, you've got this recap of all of these defeated kings, everybody that got defeated. Chapters 13 through 22, the next big chunk is a division of the land, kind of how it gets meted out. There's instructions for distribution, land allotments to the Transjordan tribes. Transjordan just means there are some tribes that inherited land on either side of the Jordan, the east and the west side. And so these are the Transjordan tribes, and some of that land allotment gets sorted out. The West Bank tribes, who's going to get some of that land. Then you've got the places for the priests and Levites, the cities of refuge, the Levitical cities. And so really the next big chunk in Joshua, kind of 13 through 22, is the instructions to who's going to inherit what part of the land. The last part of Joshua deals with Joshua's farewell address and his death, and then the death of the high priest Eleazar. There is another renewal of the covenant at Shechem. But Joshua's farewell address, this is one of the famous things that's said here is, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. But you kind of get an understanding at that point that the nation really hasn't learned anything. They're still, again, pregnant with the seed, kind of as John describes it in Revelation. They're still pregnant with the seed, the Messiah. But when Joshua says what he says at the end of his life, he says, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. The people say, well, we want to serve the Lord too. And he essentially says, well, you can't. You are serving everything else. So the book ends with the nation in the land that God's given them, but also in a state of, again, they find themselves in kind of a state of just what's, are we going to serve God or are we going to not? And Judges, the next book in the Bible, the 7th book, really chronicles the decline of the nation in the land. But Joshua ends on, Joshua's death, Eleazar's death, the high priest, and kind of the last words to the nation and encouragement to serve God, but sort of a disappointment and understanding that this is probably not going to happen. So that is the book of Joshua. And so you're following, once again, the storyline where Jesus Christ is the anchor of everything that's going on. This nation is carrying the seed of Jesus Christ, who is Jesus Christ. And you're just following that through the Bible. So I hope that's helpful.